Hi guys and welcome to my latest video. Now what we have here today is a small speaker ELAC DBU 2.0 B5.2. I hope I said everything right. Anyway, it's a very interesting one and today I'm going to talk about it. I'll just quickly go through its build features and technicalities very quickly. Then I'll move to the sound quality. And I'm going to compare it to some similar speakers at the similar price range. And finally, I'm going to do recommendations, like who I think this speaker is for, who might not like it, and so on. So be sure to stick till the end. Okay, so first let's start with the build quality. I feel it's really nice. For such a small speaker and cheap one also, it's around 250 euros in my country. I think it should be not more than 300 bucks in US. It feels hefty, you know. It comes with grills too. You can see holes in it. But I don't use these much. In general, I don't like grills. They always influence the sound a little bit at least. And on this model, the tweeter is permanently protected by this mesh wire. Beneath this, it's a silk dome tweeter, and it's protected by wire, and that's the most sensitive part of speaker, and I'm happy when I see this because I don't have to worry about it. I just put the grills in the box, forget about them. Even if some smaller kids come into my house and they touch the woofer cone, this is not all that sensitive. They cannot do much damage unless they pierce it with something. But this sensitive one is protected, that's perfect. Bass reflex port is located on the front. That's nice. It gives you a little bit more versatility when it comes to placing. And I found out that these ELACs are not all that sensitive to placing. Just general rules apply. If you put them close to the walls, they will have more bass, mid-bass bloom. They will sound a little bit warmer, but you will lose some soundstage depth. If you put them into more to the open space, they will be sound more spacious. Also, angling, you can play with that yourself. I again find them not that sensitive to angling like some other speakers. And on the back we have a single pair of binding posts, so no B-wiring. I think that's actually great. I think B-wiring is, especially in this entry-level speakers, it's just wasting money to double something that most people will not use, because usually just putting one pair of higher quality ones is better solution, and then you use one pair of higher quality cables instead of doubling everything, but usually using cheaper binding posts or cheaper cable to make B-wiring arrangement. I think that's something to think about with maybe high-endish gear, and especially when B-amping is involved, but it's just a cosmetics on entry-level speakers, so I support decision for a single pair. Now for drivers themselves, we have this bass mid-range cone, which is fairly small, 5.25 inches, I think, and silk dome tweeter protected by the wire mesh. That's all. It's a fairly small speaker, like it's narrow, and it doesn't go deep also, so I think it's really friendly when it comes to placing. Okay, so now that we are finished with these necessities, let's move to the sound quality. Now, first thing that I noticed when I put these in my system is a really nice neutral balance and really nice tonality. And I was thinking to myself, wow, these are tuned really naturally. And I usually day to day in my system I listen to CAF LS50s, and I felt these have great tonality, you know, great tone timbre, and I didn't feel that I lose any of that tonality with ELACs. Of course, a lot of things are not at the same level, but the sound overall felt right and just as a one whole. With these, I don't detect where one driver ends and the other one begins. That's something that you can actually easily detect that with a lot of speakers once that you train your hearing, once that you hear speakers that do that great, and then when you go to speakers that don't, you realize it quite easily. You know, oh, there is like some sort of crossover and character slightly changes from one frequency region to another frequency region. Not with these. These sound really like a whole to my ears. But let me elaborate a little bit and let's start with bass frequencies. Now, this is a small box, as I mentioned, 5.25 cone for woofer and mid-range. You cannot expect earth-shaking bassline. It's just not going to happen. They can go as low as maybe 50-55 hertz, so no rumbling, like earth-shaking rumbling for movies. You would have to add subwoofer for that. But what they can produce from like those 50-55 and up, these do that really nicely, and bass region sounds full and weighty and juicy, and I love that. That also helps that tone timbre quite a lot. For example, when there's a male vocal, you know, with deep, chesty vocal like Leonard Cohen, these make the singer feel present and chesty and quite palpable. And yeah, I was like, wow, this is nice. You know, they're small in size, but they produce big, lush vocals. And, okay, I was talking about the bass, actually. So bass notes have fullness, they have weight. They're not the quickest and most nimble, most precise bass notes that you would hear in this price range. I don't know, for example, Monitor Audio Bronze, I think, has faster, neater bass. Q Acoustics too. But I'll get that when I come to comparisons. But the bass is not sluggish either. It's just nice, full bass line. What it lacks, however, is a little bit of punch and a little bit of impact. So if you want a party speaker, these are not that. They can get the right weight, right tonality, they can dig decent amount of details from the bass line, but you will not feel like, oh yeah, that's the slam and that's the punch that gets me excited. These are not that type of speakers. And they approach in a similar way to higher spectrum. So when you go to the mid-range, it's again very neutral, smooth sounding. There's a lot of details. I feel it's just very nicely balanced, but it's somewhat laid back. It's precise, it's analytical. It's not overly analytical. Don't think of it as something sharp and bright. It's just neat. It's calm and it's relaxed. And resolution is great also. And then we have highest spectrum that's very similar to its mid-range. It's very incisive, it's very transparent. You get a lot of resolution from it, a lot of details, but it's not edgy in any way. It is airy, it is open, bordering with bright, but it's never edgy and harsh. It's never Chloe. And that's a nice quality. So when you put all of that together and you bundle it, you get a sound that's, I don't know how to explain it, but I think something that real audiophiles will really like. Because when you combine that tonally correct sound with that slightly analytical but very incisive sound, you hear a lot of things from the recording. For example, reverbs or echoes from the recording. spatial information, if there's any, recorded. So I play something that has clear spatial info, like room echoes. And singers and musicians are arranged in a 3D space, like the recording has some sort of depth. ELACs are the best speakers to show you that at this price point. I never heard anything that can create soundstage as deep and then populate it as accurately as these. And then put all of those echoes and reverbs together with main tones and make you believe that there is like three-dimensional soundstage going on from their plane and back behind the speakers, because these sound a little bit laid back, you know. Like the music usually starts in the plane of the speakers, like most frontal thing that's usually the singer is in the plane of the speakers, but then when something is supposed to be in the back a little bit further away from you, these do that greatly. And no speaker at this price point that I've heard can't match them. For example, Wharfedale Diamonds, Monitor Audio Bronze, Q Acoustics, even Klipsch RP 600M that are twice the price of these. They have huge, bigger soundstage when it comes to width and height. But when it comes to soundstage depth and that precise placement of instruments and imaging, these are better. It's insane. And I was really like, wow, shocked with that quality. And I loved that. The thing that can be a little bit tricky is that because of all that incisiveness and slightly analytical nature, they are very eager to scrutinize less capable systems. That's an important con, I believe, because it's easy for a reviewer that has a lot of different gear lying around to just provide them with the good system and then rave about how they can do a lot of things. But when I start thinking about it a little bit more, some realistic scenarios will include people spending the biggest chunk of their budget on speakers, such as these, and then maybe buying like a cheap Class D amplifier slash DAC, such as Topping MX3, for example. And in that case, all of these traits, like them being highly incisive and highly transparent, can become cons actually, because it will just be like, okay, you have fed me with a signal from a, lower end Class D amp that produces dynamic and punchy sound, but it has splashy highs, for example, like mentioned Topping MX3. And it sounds, a little bit grainy and thin in the upper region. You fed me with that, I will serve you that. That's what you gave me, that's what I'm just passing through. Some other speakers will be much more forgiving in that sort of situation and that sort of pairing. Also, these are a little bit power hungry. Their sensitivity is 85 decibels. It's not too low, but it's not really high either. Any reasonably powerful amp, like healthy 50 watts or higher, will drive them really properly. But if you have like weak, low-powered amp, these can have a tendency to just melt down, to just sound closed and less exciting. And where some other speakers would add a little bit of their own signature, like maybe a little bit of their own warmth, like Wharfedale's, or a little bit of their own punchiness and eagerness, like Klipsch, and still make really nice sounding music, these will be like, I don't care. This is low quality amp. Here you go. This is low quality sound. And in that sense, they're a little bit bitchy. Not going well with other gear that is subpar as some other speakers at this price point. And that actually leads me to few comparisons. So for example, I'll start with Wharfedale Diamonds. And the last one that I've tested is from the previous generation, Diamond 220. I love that speaker. It has like mid-range centric and maybe mid-bass centric sound, and it tends to make everything sound lush, especially vocals. They just sound correct and lush. But in terms of just imaging and layering and putting a three-dimensional soundstage, those Wharfedales cannot compare to ELACs. These just feel like, if I didn't know their price, I would any day say these are pricier speakers. These are like $500-600 speakers, because they can image better, separate instruments better, and arrange everything in a really believable soundstage with really decent depth. But if you feed them with a high quality amp and high quality source, you feed them with something that's a little bit thin or bright or splashy, and they will start sounding worse than Wharfedales. They will just lose a lot of their qualities. So that's something you have to consider. Like, when you buy your system or these speakers, are you thinking about what kind of amp and source you already have, and if you're planning to upgrade anytime soon? Then, for example, compared to Monitor Audio Bronze 2, again, these image better. They have that deeper soundstage, and I feel that they're more incisive even. I like Monitor Audios, really. They have that sparkly character, and they have a little bit faster bass, maybe neater, more responsive bass region. They're also more sensitive. They're more forgiving for partnering equipment. Like Monitor Audio Bronze 2 will sound really nice with wide range of equipment. These, on the other hand, will produce a little bit more of the soundstage. They will be a little bit more incisive. You will hear more reverbs and echoes, things like that. Again, if you partner them with really good equipment. If not, they retract, they collapse a little bit. Now, again, interesting comparison with something slightly more expensive, like Klipsch RP600M. These definitely have energy and slam and punch that ELACs just can't match. Realistically, there is no way. And Klipsch also sound better at lower volumes because they're snappy, they're eager to rock always. And even at lower volumes, they sound more alive, more engaging. While these are like colder, more relaxed, slightly more composed also. I especially like them when I crank the volume up a little bit. It's incredible, these are small speakers, small cones, but they handle high powers really well. I keep pushing the volume and soundstage keeps getting bigger and deeper and just more energetic, and I never feel these losing their composure. Even with really complex materials, with really complex arrangements, at high volumes they keep their cool. They sound composed, and because of that stability, soundstage feels natural and everything is firmly placed and rooted. And I really love that character of ELACs. So this brings me to recommendations. So would I recommend these to you, to my friends? Would I use them myself? Okay, let's start with myself first. Personally, I would use them. I really like them. And I feel that they have some similar traits of CAF-LS 50s that I use and that I like, because they're transparent, they're incisive, they need good system to show their full potential. And when I hear a speaker that's really good but a little bit tough and tricky, I think like, yeah, challenge accepted. I will make you sing. But to other people that don't have all of these nice gear that can back them up, I'm not so sure that I would easily recommend them. It depends. If you feel that you're in this hi-fi story for a long run, and you know that even if you're not so happy with these at first listen, somewhere down the road you will upgrade your gear and you will put some real effort into trying to make the most of these speakers, I would say go for them. These are really audiophile-centric speakers. I really believe that they offer more than most speakers at their price range in terms of some fine qualities. But you need to put an effort to take these on the surface and not some bad qualities. So, if you're just someone who is thinking like, I want to buy my first system or second system or whatever, but you're a type of guy that likes to buy something, likes it to work immediately, and don't like to mix and match and change gear that much, I would be like, I'm not really sure. You know, it's all nice and dandy that they can do so much if pampered a little bit, but they're not that cooperative. So in that case, when you actually try to just buy the system, get the reasonably good sound immediately and just not think about it, it's much easier for me to recommend Wharfedale or Monitor Audio or Klipsch. They have some qualities that are immediately engaging and immediately impressive. These are more, you have to put some effort and then they will pay you back with some really fine qualities, but they're not immediately obvious and they're not that easy to extract. In other words, these are a little bit of a diva, you know, they need some attention and care to work as you wanted them to. And personally, as I mentioned, I like that. When I see a piece of gear like that I know has some fine qualities, but I need to put some effort, I always think challenge accepted. But if you're not that kind of person, think about it. For example, I had a friend from my hometown. He asked me, like, I read so many great reviews about Hilux. Do you think I should buy them? And I asked him, like, what is the rest of your system? And he said, pretty nice. Topping E30 deck and some Yamaha receiver from early 2000s. It was like 250 at the time, something like that. And I was immediately like, no, you should not buy these. But why? Is my system bad? No, I'm not saying your system is bad per se, but you have slightly analytical DAC. You have Yamaha from lower end of the spectrum, a little bit older. They did tend to sound a little bit thinner, a little bit screamier. And it's all nice and fine for the budget, your system, but it tends to be a little bit thin, screamy, and analytical, so it's better that you add some speaker to that has its own flavor that will make your life easier, like Wharfedale's. Go for that. It will almost certainly match with your gear really nicely. Elax, no. So, on one hand, I would like to say, wow, these are the best budget speakers up to $300 that I've ever heard. I would personally choose them over probably everything else at that price point. Now, maybe if we go up higher, I would think about Q Acoustics 3030i and Klipsch RP600M. These are really tough competition. But really lower than $300, where Wharfedale Diamonds are, Monitor Audio Bronze, all of those entry-level JBLs, Klipschs and so on, I would easily choose these for myself and my own system, but I cannot recommend them that easily. Only if you enjoy having a great product that needs some care and some attention, and you're okay to put in a little bit of extra effort, and you don't see upgrading and mixing and matching as your enemy, then I can recommend these because I think they're worth it and they have a lot of headroom. I can easily see some of you buying these when you have price appropriate system of maybe like 250 amp and similarly priced DAC, but then upgrading your amp and source to something like 6, 7, 800, and these would still not be a hard limit to your sound quality. They scale that well. You would just hear more of the imaging, more of everything, more details, more of tone timbre, and many other speakers that play much more nicely with lower end gear, such as Wharfedale Diamonds, they would top sooner. You know, they would limit that pricier system sooner. Like, no matter what you back up Diamonds with, they will not create this type of soundstage depth and they will never be this incisive, but these will. So this is not a simple review, it's not like yes or no. They have their character. In some ways they're great, in some ways they're absolutely amazing, but in some other ways they're demanding and borderline bitchy. So think about it. Weigh the pros and cons and decide for yourself. Is it something worth trying out or not? So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, please click like, subscribe, share it with your friends. It would really help the channel grow and bring more and more interesting reviews. See you next time. Bye.